4:02, and we will start, we have a quorum, let's see.
4 out of 3.
Yep.
You do.
Yep, we have a quorum present. So we'll call the City Council Special Budget Work Session Meeting of April 19th, 2022 to order. And Ms. Lisa, I believe you are our presenter.
Yeah, I'll just turn it over to Lisa. Without further ado, we'll get started.
Good afternoon, all. This afternoon, we're going to talk about the budget. What staff has already done to this point is assembled a proposal of items to include, items to exclude, positions to include, positions to... We've met with all of the departments as a team package. So tonight is, we'll have a short presentation during the middle, and we'll talk all the department requests and what's been included or recommended for approval in the budget. So without further ado, our first big revenue, these are all general fund revenues, and that's going to be the focus of most of the first half of the presentation. It's going to be all general fund and general fund subsidized funds. Property tax is the city's largest revenue source. As you can see, the current fiscal year, 2022, we're anticipating getting about $22,498,820. 2022 is the first year that the assessed valuation is affected from the county's revaluation. So you'll see our value jumped from 3.5 million up to 4.4 million. You'll see our adjusted tax rate. We adopted the revenue neutral rate last year. That was effective for this fiscal year. And then you'll see the projected assessed valuation that we just received from the county. It's not much more than the current year, $4,531,970,000. We're anticipating only a little bit of growth in the revenue collection for this revenue source. I'm optimistic that it'll be better when we bill in the summer, but I was optimistic last year and I was disappointed. So right now we feel like that's a good projection and it's a strong revenue source. The other big winner for us is sales tax revenue. This revenue, I mean, look at the growth since 2018. The revenue collection back then was only 6.2 million, and we're projecting 10.6 million both this year and next year. I mean, that's just phenomenal growth in this category. One thing to note, though, see the percent value-based distribution? That is dictated by how the county chooses to distribute funding to the cities within the county. They can choose one of two methods. One is by valuation, and the other is by population. Union County chooses to distribute by the valuation, so our levy is what dictates that percentage. And you can see in 22, we had 9.06 of the total. 23, we've got 8.58% of the total. We lost a little footing, and that's a direct relation to our tax rate going down. It gives us less levy compared to everybody else whose tax rate went up. Indian Trail went up. I think they stayed with the rate that they were at. They didn't even, try to knock anything off of it. The winner was Waxhaw. So the 10.6 million that we're projecting for the current fiscal year is what we're projecting for next fiscal year as well. Don't want to project too much of an increase. I want to stay a little conservative here. We had all the IRS payments in 2021, which was this fiscal year, 2022, and a lot of the economic impact payments, just a lot of revenue that I think contributed to people's disposable income And then just construction is going full force. I'm sure that impacts, the sales tax that we're collecting here in the county as well, because all those goods are being shipped to Union County. And we'll get the sales tax direct impact from that. If there's any kind of slowdown in construction, that could affect it negatively. So we just kind of want to stay a little conservative there. And any questions, please stop me. Revenue, this is really flat. We've projected in the middle at 3.3 million. Levy that contributes to sales tax also contributes to that. It was not enough to a lot, but it could go down a little bit. This is also weather driven to some extent. It's just all your sales taxes on the different services. The final largest revenue for the general fund is our vehicle property tax revenue. As you look at the progression of the collections for this revenue source, we see a bounce to just over 2 million in 2021. When we looked at the number of vehicles, 20 to 2021, not sure why, but the vehicle counts were up. This is all information that we get directly from the state through the county. It's out of our control, but we just 2022, you'll see the revenue go down to 1.8 million. This is due to the lower tax rate. The values of the vehicles doesn't change during a reval. A reval only affects your house, your property, but not personal property, not the vehicles. So with a lower tax rate, we get a little less revenue. We are projecting 2 million for next year, hoping it's just a crystal ball. But I think that'll be doable.
So Lisa, just to clarify, the revenue neutral rate that we adopted, or we did, it affects because the county does sales tax on valuation, it kind of has an effect on all other kind of taxes that we get revenue from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much is dictated by our tax rate and by that levy. The formulas all hinge on that, so it doesn't only affect the property tax, it affects sales, utility tax to a small extent, and then of course the vehicle tax.
And then those like Indian Trail or Waxhaw that kept their
Kept
tax
their-
rate the same, they come out better when it comes to sales tax in that valuation formula when the county calculates it. So we're actually running behind.
Yeah, they get a bigger piece of the pie because then their levy ends up going up where ours went down, and the distribution just ends up shifting.
Just something to think about.
Other things or strategies that we use when we're putting a budget together are uses of fund balance. We have an unassigned fund balance, and we can use this to fund capital projects, one-time maintenance projects, capital equipment, both new and replacement. Any one-time use is a good source to use that unassigned. Anything in there like personnel that would have an ongoing cost, or adding a building and the operating costs end up coming out of fund balance. We don't want to do that. But any one-time hit is a real good source. A little bit of history, where we're at with fund balance. As of March 31st, you can see we have formal assignments in that first column. Airport money is at $251,000. And we have $2.5 million still set aside for downtown parking lot improvements. These are earmarks that we've set aside formally by council action. The unassigned balance as of March 31st is just over $3.8 million. During the rest of the fiscal year, sorry, there's a typo, better than budgeted revenues. And we also plan on having some savings due to personnel vacancies. So all of that money will go right back into the fund balance. So you could see the unassigned balance we're projecting at June 30th is going up to just about 7.1 million. Through balancing the budget and funding one-time expenses, we anticipate using 3.3 million of fund balance to cover those one-time purchases. So that'll put us back at the 3.8 million that we're currently at, which, this is just a projection. We recalculate after the end of the year. Fund balance policy reserve that this board adopted, that is separate from what we're looking at on the slide. You have 11.6 million that council has asked that we set aside. That's in case of, say, a natural disaster or, just something totally unexpected. We can tap into that, and that is in addition to everything that's unassigned or formally assigned.
Excuse me, Lisa.
Yes.
The savings personnel costs, is this just for this physical year? Or are these?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, we've had a lot of vacancies across the board. I think all divisions have seen savings in that area.
And for those that may not have been here then, but the parking lot improvements, that is to cash fund the new lot across the street. That was cash funding of that project, that portion of the project. Then we have the joint partnership with the county in making improvements in the lot back here. They're still interested in that. They just have some housekeeping to do on their end before they could actually commit to the interlocal and proceed with us on that. But we're still talking about the improvements and everything. Those are getting ready. And then the other lot is the to add to a little bit of funding that's in. So that's what that money set aside for, and then any additional for that.
Any questions on fund balance? Another source that we try to utilize for funding would be, debt. If some of our debt is rolling off, sometimes there could be some savings there that we could allocate towards something else. Really, from fiscal year 22 to 23, we did have a couple of repaying the electric fund that are rolling off, but a full year of debt payments for the senior center and the police headquarters absorbed that. So it was really no savings, just about flat from year to year. We start to see some good savings out in 2025 and in 2026. However, there'll be some debt that'll be coming back on. We do have a fire truck proposed for replacement this year. That'll add $95,000 a year starting in 2024. By the time 2025 comes, we still should see a little bit of savings. So now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, the draft budget. I'm going to hit the budget metrics, highlight the citywide initiatives. Highlight the proposed changes by department. Anything more than $10,000 is what I've included for the remaining proposed budget schedule. Put into perspective, $445,898. This doesn't include vehicles. This is just property tax that we're looking at here. So if you added a building that cost $1 million, you would generate $5,025 to the city to be able to collect on the taxes on that building. So if you wanted to increase spending in the budget by $500,000 down on the very bottom, you would need just over a penny, 1.121 cents increase in the tax rate to afford that $500,000 in spending. This has gone up a little bit since the reval. That's just the way the numbers fall out. So citywide initiatives, We have included in the budget for consideration up to a 2% merit increase for all employees. The general fund is $481,000. Across all the funds is $647,000. I'm going to come back to the second one in just a moment. We've also included a 2.5% COLA increase for the enterprise funds. That's $259,000. As mandated by the state, by the pension folks, we increased the city contribution for retirement 1.2%. We have included the air show, net of revenue, $50,000. Our outside agency funding has actually gone down year over year. With the new program, I think we had less applicants, so the total budget for that went down to $310,000. But we've increased economic development cash incentive grants. We now have a total of $1,275,000. It went up about $213,000. There was 2 additional ones that contributed to that increase. And then back to the number 2, we're looking to implement the salary survey in the general fund. And we had Baker Tilly did the survey, and they're here tonight to give you details regarding the survey. But what it does is it includes the COLA and brings us to a market level, and we're able to implement this all in 1 year this time. For those of you in the past, it's taken us several years to implement these salary surveys because we've been so far off, but we really weren't too far off, and we're able to afford it and get it all done in 1 year. I'm going to turn it over to Jada Kent, who'll give you more information regarding the survey itself.
And Deborah, it was what, 6 years ago when we did the last one for the general fund? 2015, 7 years. And when we did it then, it took us 3 years. It was phased in over 3 years to implement that funding. So we've made progress, but we're still not there yet. So. Okay, 8 years. All right. Yeah. Okay. So that's just
15
kind of.
years, really.
What's that?
It's a 15-year gap.
Basically.
Keep up in this, it's just gonna make us all feel worse. You see.
I just want to make sure I can
I
still
get it,
add.
Deborah.
I'll make sure you understand that big number right there.
All right, well, good evening. Thank you all for having me. But also thanks to Deb going, coordinating, and facilitating it the whole way through. We couldn't have done it without them. But my name is Jada Kent. I'm here so I'm going to walk you through kind of the study that we did with the city. Just high-level overview of kind of what the goals were for doing the study in the first place, what the major phases, results of each of those phases. It's not moving through there. Okay, so the goals as we understood for Monroe's needs were to update job evaluations, making sure that there is internally equitable relationships between positions. Positions are appropriately classified if there's a need for new positions or change titles, etc. To conduct a labor market study just to make sure that the salaries for positions are externally competitive. Also looking at a new information, adjustments to classifications, and just so you know, we didn't build you a new class and comp study and say, all right, figure it out. Here's how you actually adopt it as well. So our process follows through looks like 6 major phases for this one. We always start with data collection, which is us partnering with the city's project team to just kind of understand what are your goals for doing the study, what's the timeline, what's the expectations, and then also kind of getting everything scheduled. So we collected a whole bunch of information. We conducted communication meetings with employees and your leadership group. We did position analysis questionnaires from your employees. They filled out those documents, letting us know in their own words what work is actually being performed in their positions. And then we used those documents really as the foundation for the whole rest of the study. It was our understanding of what your employees those positions are doing by your employees filling out those documents. So we used those when we did our position review, looking at titles, making sure things were appropriately titled, nature and level of work is reflected. Also doing job evaluation. We have our own point factor system that we used to kind of measure the internal equity of all of the jobs. We'll get into that piece a little bit more. But then also doing the market study, so looking at comparative and competitive public peer organizations, their base pay information and kind of comparing that against the cities, developing a new pay plan, calculating those implementation scenarios. We are also going to be doing some work for the job descriptions, making updates where necessary. And then here we are in the project completion, just kind of wrapping everything up. Okay, so a little bit more about our job evaluation tool. So it's a point factor system, and that means for these 9 compensable factors that you see, each one of them have a numerical value. So, you know, the education requirement is high school, associates, bachelor's, et cetera. There's a numerical value for each of those degrees. So the end result is a total score. And that's how we're coming up with your hierarchy of jobs. We're just sorting the numbers. And so our system was actually designed for the purpose of measuring local government jobs, the internal value. We were previously a firm called Springstead, which was headquartered in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they've got a very strict pay equity law in Minnesota that requires job evaluation for every public organization. And so this is why SAFE exists. It was meant to kind of check the box on that strict law in Minnesota, but it also checks the box on the Federal Pay Equity Act as well. So all of the positions in the city were compared against these 9 compensable factors, the same criteria. And so when you're looking at jobs maybe that are working outside and there's hazardous working conditions, or at least unpleasant ones, and they're doing physical activity versus someone who works in a nice air-conditioned building, maybe there's more complex requirements or higher education levels, those things kind of all measure each other out because there's 9 factors. It's not just only education, only working conditions, it's all of those factors. And so getting into the market study, because that's the most exciting piece everybody wants to hear about. We worked with the city, came up with 15 public peer organizations. We reached out to them and received data from 13. The 2 that we didn't get information from are kind of bolded. And it looks like you can't really see the last 3, but we also supplemented with data from published salary data sources. We use the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Economic Research Institute, and Robert Half Salary Survey. So using those really serves as that private sector benchmark in the market study. So once we collected the data, there was a couple of adjustments that we kind of provided on the information. First, work week. If you've got an organization who's got a 37.5 versus a 40-hour work week, we just want to bring everything up to a common point. If some of the data was not current, like Bureau of Labor Statistics is usually about a year old by the time they're publishing it, so we always age it to the current year. And then the big one is the differences in geographic labor. So we do a cost of labor adjustment, and that takes cost of living into, so qualified workers versus unemployed workers in a given region. So for all of these 13 public peer organizations that we received data from and the published survey sources, we applied a geographic differential. And so where you see a negative number on that far right means that the cost of labor in that area for Gastonia, that looks like that's an example of one, that the cost of labor in Gastonia is greater than what it is in Monroe. So that's the adjustment that was put on all of the data we received from Gastonia. Okay, so quality control of the data. When we sent out the survey, we also included a summary of the positions, so it wasn't just a title for title match and we hope we got lucky and it's the same position. It was, here's what this position is and what are you paying? Do you have this position first of all, and what are you paying it? What is best practice observed as a good match is a 70% overlap in positions. And then once we collected that data back, kind of scrubbing it, making sure things are what they are supposed to be. And then we also required at least 4 matches per benchmark position. So at the end of the day, a market value is just an average. And if you have too few data points, you're drawing an average on not enough information. So we required at least 4 matches to be able to draw that conclusion. So in developing the pay structure, the three big parameters that we wanted to pay attention to is the number of pay grades, the midpoint differential, and the range spreads. So number of pay grades are really kind of determined by your compensation philosophy, your business needs, just kind of the general way that the city conducts its business. Some organizations like to give lots of little increases, some like to give few but very significant increases. So that will kind of dictate how many grades you need. The midpoint differential is going to be the distance between grades at the midpoint. So adjacent grades, the distance between the midpoint. So that also shows how much overlap there will be. And then the range spread is the distance between the minimum and the maximum. So where you're starting someone versus where is that midpoint and the maximum for that pay range. So this is the pay plan that we came up with. It's an open range plan, which means there's just a minimum and a maximum. There's not defined steps in between. It's got 20 pay grades. The range spread is 55%, and then we've got a midpoint differential of 10%. And so since this is just a bunch of numbers on a table, I also have kind of a chart because I like to see the numbers, see where the overlap is and where the overlap isn't. So there's also a chart of what that pay plan looks like in the report. So the way that we have assigned positions to this new pay plan is with consideration to the internal and the external factors. So with internal, if you remember our point factor system, the end result is a total is also a numerical value. So we run a regression analysis to see how well the internal and like external equity. There's always outliers. These dots, which is kind of hard to see in the screen, but these dots represent benchmark positions. So on the left side is the dollar value, and on the bottom is going to be the safe score, so you can kind of see where those things intersect. And then you've got the bold blue line through the middle, which is our regression line. And so just kind of, the R-squared number, the coefficient of determination is 92.4%. That's how well internal and external are predicting each other. But this regression is also showing how well the proposed pay plan fits over all of those data points. So the maximum, the minimum, and the midpoint are also on that chart. And you can see that the bold regression line is right on top of the proposed midpoint for the pay plan. So the pay plan is just right on top of what the market says for all of that. So now we've got everybody in pay grades. This is the point in the study where we turn from looking at the position to the person in the position to say, okay, this employee and this title is paid where, and based on where they should be paid, how much is all of this going to cost? So a couple of implementation scenarios that we ran. In the first scenario, employees who have an existing salary that is below the new proposed minimum, at least getting them to that new minimum so that everybody's on the pay plan. And then the second scenario is looking at giving a 0.5% increase times years of service with the organization. And so that's kind of marching employees through that pay range relative to how many years they've been with the city. So for an example, someone who has 10 years of service, it would be a total of 5% increase. Overall, that's the study in a nutshell. Our recommendations are, what a surprise. We want you to adopt our work. Approve the proposed pay plan and the position assignments. Select an implementation scenario that fits the city ability. And then another one that we really wanted to highlight is for the city to continue its efforts in keeping the pay structure updated. So the COLA adjustment that you're looking at adopting, that's really important because the last time when you had to roll this over a couple of years, that compounds. And so you're taking 3 or however many years to get to the market value from 3 years prior. So keeping the efforts going, COLA increases, merit increases, kind of doing a periodical market review, maybe just a portion of your positions, reviewing job descriptions as those positions come available. There's all kinds of nuisance maintenance things you can do every year to kind of keep that burden of every 5 to 7 years having to do this over again. But just we commend and recommend that the city continue those efforts. So is there any questions, anything anybody wanted to go over again? Well, we're hiring, so if anybody really liked compensation from the presentations.
Good try.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And Deborah knows where to reach me if anybody does have any questions later on.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, once again, the citywide initiative would be to implement, the recommendation is to implement the salary survey in the general fund all in 1 year, and it would take the place of the COLA in the general fund. And the utilities have done their salary surveys. I think they're on the opposite year now from the general. Yeah.
That's in the budget.
Sorry. Oh, I'm having trouble getting it to advance. There, got it. Thanks. Thanks, I got it. Thank you, Josh. It's not right on the screen, but that's okay. I'm using my paper printout. So now we get down into the nitty-gritty, down into the departments, and I thank all of the department heads. They're all here. If we have any specific questions, they'll be able to help out and provide some answers. Very first one is facilities maintenance. In this department, we are recommending replacing the single paned glass on the windows in the old water maintenance building. That'll really improve the appearance of that area. We have some roof replacements, the Ellen Fitzgerald Center and the customer service building. You'll see replacements scattered throughout the recommendations. All of these replacements are rated by the garage. The city's garage looks at every vehicle and give it a number value based on appearance, age, mileage, dependability. And this score will dictate, whether or not it needs to be replaced. And of course, we try to replace the vehicles when they come due. Otherwise, they become maintenance headaches, or sometimes the parts get phased out. So everything that the garage recommends, we try to recommend in the budget for replacement. I won't touch on each one. You'll just see those, pop up on every slide. Excluded or delayed was a scissor lift. We currently borrow one, that seems to be working.
Are you saying that you're not recommending fixing those roofs?
Oh, yeah, no, we are. Those
I
are,
thought I saw it say you were not.
No.
oh, no, that's included.
Delayed.
That's recommended because it does so much damage once they start leaking. We don't want those headaches.
And both of those buildings we plan very much used, and then Ellen Fitzgerald wants this.
Yeah, I would think that would be very important.
And I put energy services. So. And in order to seek a grant administrator, will also assist the departments with their applications and their quarterly reports or annual reports. Replacing a pool car. We're delaying construction of the new garage facility and the replacement of the carpet at customer service for now. In human resources, we're just replacing the risk manager's car. We are delaying the human resource analyst position. And there's a program for non-CDL employees driving records. We're going to delay that across all of the city, and then pretty hefty, but we're going to delay that for now as well. Total street resurfacing that's recommended is $1,591,500. This includes the $500,000 that we've included in the budget, which is in addition to the vehicle tax of $864,500 and the PAL bill of $227,000. This was half of Sarah's requested amount. You could see down on the bottom, there's the other half is being delayed. We felt this was an adequate funding level for the year. It gets the program a little bit higher than what it was previously. There she is, all the way in the back. And is manageable, we hope, for Sarah's staff. We're replacing a truck with POW bill money. The sidewalk maintenance, after further discussion, even after we put this slideshow together, we'd like to change the funding source on that from POW bill to fund balance. We'd rather preserve the POW bill money. We use a lot of that toward matching funds for NCDOT projects, and we don't want to deplete it on the sidewalk maintenance, so we'd like to change that funding source.
We've got a few big DOT projects, as you heard, so we just want to be prepared for those when they do come up.
The next is an ongoing repay operations center, divided up during different years, replacing a Ford F-150 and a tandem truck. Excluding or delaying the streetscape on Haynes Street. This is sidewalk design, easement purchase, and construction. We're delaying the 2 street maintenance workers. These would have been for concrete crews, and the street sign technician. Really need them to get back to a 2-person crew, but just wasn't doable this year. And we're also foregoing the parking lot resurfacing at Church and Kroll. In the planning department, we're replacing a Ford Escape, and we were not able to fund any of the implementation effort for the Concord area redevelopment, and we've delayed the additionist department. Previously, the community maintenance workers were funded from the solid waste fund. When looking at the solid waste fund, without a substantial rate increase to our ratepayers in solid waste, we couldn't leave these people there. We felt it was an appropriate time to move them into the general fund so that we could maintain that program going forward. So we've moved the 2 people and their operating expenses into the general fund and created this division. There was a request from the department to add 2 additional maintenance workers and a vehicle. We have to defer that.
What was the reasoning behind not increasing the charge to absorb this?
We felt it would have
That's a
been,
low fee, isn't it?
would have been a couple
$20.
dollars per person or per household per month. And it was quite a bit to be able
How
to,
much would that add? Ballpark.
where are we at?
It's not that big a deal, I'm just asking. We probably haven't increased that in some while, is that not correct?
Yeah, what's our current rate, 21 something? I think
right
it's
around
somewhere around there.
$21.
We thought we were getting
How
up out of,
much is this? $1 or $2, whatever you got to, I mean, what do you got to put on it to generate that kind of money?
keep the existing people, probably $1 if you wanted to do all of what's up there, probably closer to $2.50.
All of that top half or what you've excluded down there?
For everything, I would think closer to $2.50.
I'm just a big one on wanting to charge what it cost us. That's just my personal opinion. I'm just expressing it. I'm not trying to tell these people what to do. You know, that's just my thought.
Well, I guess it becomes kind of a philosophical argument. Should it be a cost that's borne by the ratepayers in solid waste, or is it really a general fund, expenditure? And we debated that, and that was our conversation. And we thought, well, typically you'd see this type of activity be in the general fund, and then just the solid waste would account for the hauler and the recycling and, the direct services to the ratepayers.
Yeah,
So
we're giving that to Waste Pro instead of us. I like that. It is philosophical, you're right.
Yeah.
We differ on that.
Yeah,
My philosophy and yours or whoever is different. I'm just expressing that, so it's not that big a deal. Hey, if I could figure out a way to put $12 million in a fee for public safety, I would. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. I'm just,
And Sarah, by contract, every year they do have an increase of sorts if they make that request built in, so.
Yeah, they do
It does
pricing.
adjust,
yeah. We have that number later in this,
Yeah.
in the presentation, but yeah, they increase their amount every month to, every year too. Code Enforcement and Building Standards Department. We are recommending addition of 2 people. Building inspector. The building permit fees, of course, are up with all of the construction that's been going on. We found that it was an adequate amount to inspector and their vehicle. And a code enforcement officer was increased minimum housing demolition by $20,000 and funded by the building permit fee. They had some carry forward fund balance from last year, and we're going to utilize that to replace one of their vehicles. Exclude or delay. These two, I believe, went together. It's a non-residential maintenance code that would allow us to then do demolitions of residential properties on commercial sites. We're going to delay this effort.
There's also a personnel component that goes with that.
In the police department, we're recommending addition of a crime scene technician. That includes a vehicle. They'll be able to evidence collection. We're also recommending increasing overtime expense for the existing folks, and half of that is, which is miscellaneous. We've mentioned this a couple times. The furnishings and the network cabling and the IT equipment for the new police station were not included in the project, and we're funding this from fund balance. Those are estimates that we've received to be able to accomplish installing all of that at the new facility. In the fire department, included and recommended is a plan reviewer inspector part-time to help with the backlog of fire inspections. They also are increasing their overtime expense. The next 3 items are replacements. And then there's that fire engine for Station 6 that I mentioned that we'd like to fund through an installment financing. We typically have been doing those over a 10-year period, so the debt service would be about $95,000 a year on that. We'd like to upgrade rescue struts. These stabilize smaller vehicles in car accidents. Upgrade the SCBA masks with radio communications for the captains. And this will allow them to stream communications between other personnel at an event. Roll and rack hose loading system is just that. It'll assist personnel with rolling up the hoses and reduce injury. Replacing portable radios, 6 of them. Replacing the rescue lift airbag system. Replacing thermal imaging cameras, 4 of them. And replacing the hose dryer here at Station 1.
How long does the fire engine last?
Pardon?
How long does the fire engine last?
About the 10 years, match that, and we've found that at the 10-year point, they're starting almost impossible to get. They almost, in some of these specialty years, it's just ridiculous.
That's been a challenge with police vehicles too.
Ordered Dodges and they canceled them. So, yeah, it's a challenge all the way around, just getting. We've excluded or delayed at the fire department, the training way, the replacement of the weather station, replacement of the alarm panel here at City Hall, hazmat gas ID. There were some positions requested for fire shift safety and training battalion captains, 3 of those, which included a vehicle as well. We're delaying that and the deputy fire marshal full-time position. And there's the next 2 are for Station 6. There's 9 positions there. We have made an application for the SAFER grant for these 9 positions, and we should hear the results of the grant awards by September, October. If we're not able to get the SAFER grant, which we're keeping our fingers crossed, we really could use that grant, we'll come back to council with some other proposals for funding.
With a budget amendment to fund those positions.
Okay.
Some other smaller items that were delayed, fencing at the training grounds, the training tower painting, storage building at the training grounds and at Station 5, a feasibility and additional PCs. In the IT department, we've recommended an additional GIS specialist. We have one now. He has no backup and we have no succession plan. So we feel this is real important. Most of the new software that we've been installing integrate with GIS. We're really getting more heavily into using GIS. Felt this was an important addition. We're also adding maintenance for a program that we already own and replacing the Chevy Tahoe. We've delayed the other 2 positions that were requested, which were an admin assistant and a data analyst. At the Dowd Theater, we are requesting 2 part-time, a house manager and a technical assistant. This will help us to manage the events more efficiently, especially on the weekends. You know, the full-time people that we have now are just maxed out and they're getting spread really thin, having to manage all of the events.
Could you not shift some of those people from working weekends and not working?
I think they do that to some extent, but they're still stretched to cover manning the events.
And as we add more events and movies, the 3 there are tapped out as it is with rentals and then our scheduled programming and stuff. So this is always part of the plan. Once we get things going, we'd add these part-time positions to help take some of the burden off the full-time staff.
Parks and Rec, got a lot going on this department, big department. So the first 2 items are personnel reorganization, just to align better with how we're using the staffing currently. Changing building attendants to after-school program aides, 4 of them, 1 for each 4 rec centers. There's no cost here, we're just changing it up. The second item is changing 1 position, a fields attendant to a recreation assistant. This will assist in special events and coordinate field maintenance. We're recommending repairing the insulation panels at Dickerson. Now the next 5 items there were all required in rec. And what we did was we took a look at the ARPA dollars, we made 1 adjustment there, and we had dropped a Greenway program out and then put some additional funding toward the shortfall at Belk Tonawanda, and there was just a little bit of money left over. We took that money, plus took a little bit away from one of the other projects. We were able to fund all 5 of the equipment at Creft Park, Don Griffin, replacing the at park that included dog park, a shelter, and park. We felt these really fit with the grant goals to reach out and get people outside and active and create those outdoor spaces that people can enjoy. We're recommending a new Kubota utility vehicle. This is for Greenway maintenance. Increasing vehicle maintenance, mostly because of those expensive leaf trucks. Greenway design and construction, this is ongoing funding. We've been putting $100,000 towards this effort every year, and as we accumulate enough funding, we're targeting projects and then adding them to our project list. Right now, we're designing that Greenway project that we took out of the ARPA, and the funds where this goes are being used for that. It's pickup trucks and mowers, and then some fencing replacements and repairs. They just target the worst-looking fences and go out and repair them. Things that were excluded or delayed were additional Christmas tree lighting attractions, converting Parks Williams soccer field, Don Griffin Park bathroom, Belk Tonawanda camera and security project was excluded, and the signs at Parks Williams.
I'd just make a comment on that camera security project. I think I value that pretty highly because there's been a lot of, as we're all pretty much aware, a lot of nefarious activity going on at Tonawanda Park. You can't be there all the time. But how many cameras were going to be included in that? And are they wireless? And
Included in this project would go onto the picnic shelter, that's a wireless camera.
okay.
And the issue we also ran into was a spot to put the actual DVR box that would capture the information.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree to that. We're spending money on Belk Tonawanda Park with that grant we got, plus our match. Activity probably is going to increase there. As you say, it's in a position to be a security risk. 20,000, you're not going to get much anyway. Probably is necessary and needed.
If council has a consensus, we can add that in, make that adjustment.
No problem with that.
Sure.
I think I would.
I'd like to do that if we could.
Okay.
I would.
So we'll move that to the funded
Right.
side of the page.
Since it's a one-time fee, probably be moved to fund
Fund
balance. Yeah.
Okay.
How much would you need to truly cover, and I know you can't truly cover the whole park? Is there
Yeah.
any idea of what it would cost to have a more comprehensive surveillance system?
Josh probably looked at this, but I think the issue is the lack of Wi-Fi service in the park. I think when we initially discussed that, we were talking about the entire park. And I think our compromise was to hook the camera pretty much onto a place in the park that could cover the most area without the Wi-Fi.
So one of the things that you need to look at is what are exactly you're trying to secure, right? So the picnic shelter, I know that have some vandalism and things like that. In those areas?
It's wiring, one of the only places that we easily put the camera, to have a place to house the equipment would be the picnic shelter. And it was also in a good spot that could view the entire, or most of the park.
But if we need to reevaluate and readdress.
Brian, might it help to have folks answering these questions from the podium?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to hear. I can't hear, but I'm hearing enough. I think that.
Does everyone have, yeah, it's hard to watching.
Long legacy.
Yeah.
To you with and let our three departments work together because I'd be willing to partner with the police department so we would have access to that as well. So instead of us trying to ram shot this and just saying, hey, we're going to do it, can we get something together?
Let me just ask, are those things monitored? Yeah.
Gordon, how's
That falls on the personnel side,
Right,
Freddie.
I get it, I get it, I get it. I get it, I
We
get
could monitor everything.
it. Right.
But we'll
We'd like to, I know.
what we'll do is we'll move this one camera to the funded side, but then we'll bring back another proposal, which may be a budget amendment, or maybe we could incorporate into this, if that's fine.
That's
with
fine,
everyone.
that's fine, yeah.
That's good.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Recreation Parks? One of the other things that we like to evaluate when we're going through the budget process is our fee schedule. There's a couple of inconsistencies we found. One of the rec centers was left out under picnic shelters, and one of the community shelters, the old armory, was left out of that group. So we wanted to add those in. Of course, we have our new facilities that'll be coming online, the new senior center and the splash pad, and we'd like to add rates to the senior center multi-purpose 4-hour block. That's is that a rental fee, Ryan?
That's a rental fee of the same capacity as the old community center.
Okay. So $300 for a resident and $400 for a non-resident for a 4-hour block. And the same 6-hour block, $400 for a resident, $500 for a non-resident. And then the splash pad shelter rental for a 2-hour block, $125 resident, $200 non-resident. The athletic were for clarification. And then we removed a few. I think we just don't have those programs anymore. Adding non-resident rate to track and field to be consistent with the others, and adding adult softball since it was just missing. Just some cleanup.
All right, just one question. I'm ignorant and don't know. On that senior center rent, is that a new fee, up a fee, or what?
There's a multi-purpose room that's going to be included in the construction.
Yes?
That's going to be available for rental.
Yes.
It's-
We haven't had that room
No.
before.
No,
And have we been charging for rooms? I know we.
not at the senior center.
Okay.
It's going to be in the same type of level as the old Armor Community Center room. It'll be the same type of facility there.
I could just hear some of our dancers ringing me up about that fee.
Well, there'll be another room for that to take place. There's a fitness room there as well. This is a separate multi-purpose room.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
just for rentals and banquets.
All right, all right.
We'll take care of the dancers.
Okay. Okay, okay.
Thank you. Moving on to golf course. We are recommending addition of a senior equipment mechanic. With the split from Parks and Rec, and we've had a staff retirement, we need to have somebody that'll just attend to the carts down there at the facility, keep them in tip-top shape. We want to replace, and then we have annual T-box funding. This is another one where we're just putting money aside annually to cover, bigger repairs when they're needed or renovations when they're needed. So it accumulates and it stays in a project until the golf course decides, hey, I want to fix, this tee box, and then they utilize it. Funding source out on the right-hand side. It's exciting. The golf course made money and they have a fund balance.
Thank COVID for that.
Yeah, the usage out there has just been astronomical. They're utilizing their own fund balance to be able to replace that rough mower and buy the utility vehicle. Delayed are the Toro Sand Pro and the Buffalo twin turbine blower, whatever it is.
They're relatively small. That fund balance running a little low or what?
I think we exhausted
Okay.
country club.
I figured you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
With those two, it kind of wiped it out.
All right, maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year.
Yeah.
Downtown Monroe. We're recommending new planters and the dog park. Excluded for downtown is, of course, the design for the one-way street conversion and the Charlotte Lancaster roundabout project. Wanda Gateway, that was the purchase of 718 North Charlotte and the Highway 74 gateway signs. Those are like the blue signs that you see around town.
Can you remind me
Just-
where the dog, I'm sorry, where is the dog park going?
This will be on the Mosier property, right out near the Science Center. It's that sliver of property right next to the Chute property, where that old, used to be a mechanic garage
Yeah.
that was there at one time. We bought that several years, quite a few years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Just some other information about our downtown district. The projected MSD tax revenue is $61,676. The total cost of our downtown division is about $273,000. So that's just a small piece of those expenses. Also, downtown does not include trash pickup. Those expenses are personnel and other promotional expenses, but it does not include the trash pickup. Right now, the trash pickup is about $21,000 a year, and that's being absorbed. You're aware of that.
I remember several years ago when we implemented the dumpsters of businesses and put in those 5 common dumpster areas. Back then, it was decided that council didn't want to charge for downtown trash collection. And we have not charged since. It would have been a prorated scale for office, have retail, and then restaurant would be the highest for that collection rate. But that's something I think we need to discuss in the future at some point.
Not necessarily today.
Not necessarily today, but just to keep that in the back of your mind.
I get it.
We'll remind you
Right.
as needed.
I hear you.
And that's it for downtown Monroe. Charlotte and Monroe Executive Airport, this is our last general fund or general fund subsidized fund. Out at the airport, we are replacing the pooled positions with 1 part-time and 2 full-time line technicians. Then we're doing the same thing for the customer service reps, eliminating all the pooled positions, adding a part-time and 2 full-time customer service representatives. We feel we'll be able to get better coverage and even out the work out there, keep a more constant staffing level by doing that. We're also unit, I don't know what that is, but I know we only have one now, and it's older, and we need a second one. Oh.
A wheel generator that they can plug into the airplanes. It's a wheel generator that can be plugged into the airplane so that the corporate jets can operate their equipment on the ground so they don't have to keep their jet engines running. So basically, we'll use that. We would derive revenue from that too. So
Up those fees every chance you get.
That's on the next slide.
That's right, okay.
We're deferring the pavement maintenance out there. That's the parking lot and the driveway. And the fee schedule adjustments. The first 3 are to adjust fuel rates for self-service, full service, and self-fueling storage fee. We have people that keep their fuel in our tanks and then use it. So increase those markups. The monthly lease rates we're recommending increase by 10%. The overnight storage rates increase by the same 10%. And line service fees, rather than bill by the quarter hour, we'd like to bill by the hour. So we'd like to change that to just $100 per hour. So now all the funds from this point forward are self-supporting. They're all our enterprise funds. We look at them annually, and they each have their own business model. So we look at them over time to make sure that the rates are sufficient to support their operations, to make capital improvements when they're needed, to afford additional personnel if that's their request. They all maintain their own fund balance, so when you see fund balance on the slide, that's not general fund anymore. This is Monroe Aquatics and Fitness Center fund balance that we'll be using in this fund. So things that we're recommending for are treadmills, HVAC, indoor pool heater.
For the 8-lane pool, the big pool.
Yes.
Okay, that hadn't been in there but about 2 years.
Actually working through that issue, that's one where getting outside attorneys to basically push hard because despite the manufacturer and the installer, so we are bringing the hammer down, as it were.
That's good.
But we have to recognize that we're going to be responsible for the cost until, because of the way they've handled it, it's going to end up being.
That's the answer.
Hopefully we'll recoup. We also included renovation of the Parks and Recreation offices. The staff for Parks and Recreation will be moving to the senior center once it's complete, and those offices will need to be renovated at the aquatic center. We're delaying the replacement of the roof sections. We were able to address this portion that was requested this year, so it wasn't needed. Stormwater fund. Ongoing, they do small construction projects by contract. This is one of those, we're just putting the money aside and then doing projects as needed. Water quality projects at the Stewart Creek watershed. And we're replacing a track skid loader. We've deferred the personnel at this time. Excuse me. They were not supported by the business model, and we just want to give Sarah time to, further evaluate really what the needs are in this area, make sure that, that's what's needed at this time. In the water and sewer fund, the first item is required by state statute. It's a water and sewer capacity fee study update. They make the mandates and they don't fund them, and we have to do the studies, and that's one of those. Engineering services to assist with the Infrastructure and Jobs Act funding application. This is to pay a firm to make the application to hopefully get some grant money. We've got replacements of a couple vehicles, bush hogs, and then down to equipment operator 1, we're adding 2 positions there. These will meet the critical work needs in the programs that are, where we're replacing, our pipe and just demand for new meter sets, locates, the increased growth, increased work needs. Serum replacement program to meet our 1% goal. Pump station repairs, material increased costs, so we've just added money to help better fund those costs as they keep going up. Replacing a utility truck, an excavator, a roller tamp, 2 of them, shoring boxes, and then these construction inspectors, temporary, 3 of them. These are actually retired employees that are coming back and helping with inspections at our construction projects. And, it's so imperative for them to be there while that pipe's going in the ground. And this is just such a great program to get them back on a part-time basis, and it really helps us out tremendously. Sewer pipe bursting, increased costs there. Construction labor for plan review as needed. We're replacing a utility vehicle. Replacement of the 500 kilowatt generator. It's just at the replacement time, end of life. The same with the basin number 2 coating. It's replacing the existing coating. It just is degraded. Continued, these items are also recommended for funding. Contractor cleaning and handling of solids in the Ash Water Lagoon. Increasing the chemical budget. Increasing the water purchase from Union County, replacing a diesel pump, replacing marine scales. The biggie here, the wastewater treatment plant expansion design. This is what we've been socking the money away for. We're finally going to get some of that money out and do the design of the project. We've been saying, we've been doing these rate increases every year to put the money aside so that we can do this expansion. And now it's finally here. We're starting it, so it's exciting. We need some intersection improvements. These will be the next two are DOT projects. We'll have to work on those areas as they're making their improvements. We're replacing the Nelson Heights with a 1.5 mg East Zone tank. We're hoping to get an ARPA grant to cover this project. We're hopeful that we'll get it. We think our consultant will be able to write a good application to get some grant funding there. If not, then we'll use our reserves. And we're also planning to do the Union Indian Trail Pump Station Parallel Force. The fee schedule changes, still recommending the same incremental rate increase, 3.5% for both water and sewer. That way we can continue to keep putting the money in the capital fund to be able to afford the construction of the waste treatment plant. We're using the consumer price index to increase the administrative and non-construction fees. That's 2.32% this year. And we use the construction cost index to increase the construction-related fees, including capacity fees, by 2.68%. In the electric fund, we are adding 2 administrative assistant full-time just to keep up with the growth in the customer base, compliance, data entry, support. We're adding 2 engineering technicians to design new developments and GIS map updates. We do have some relocation projects. We're replacing a bucket truck. They have a 10-ton trailer. We're purchasing substation transformer bushings, an enclosed utility trailer for maintenance. We're adding an electric safety and training coordinator. This will oversee the safety and training that's required by OSHA. And it'll also investigate outside party damages to our facilities. We're adding 3 journeyman linemen and 3 line apprentice, just all increased workload, keeping up with installing a lot of stuff. Increase to the economic development rate rider. We anticipate 6 new customers in fiscal year 23, and this will allow us to offer them the incentives. Additional funds to cover outstanding invoices for pole attachment agreements. The North Carolina law dictates how much we can charge. And actually, this is to write off some of the bills that we've sent out, and this is also due to Windstream's bankruptcy. So we need to budget to make those write-offs. Rubber goods testing and replacement. Increase budget to cover the construction activities. Rob is planning to construct a new energy services facility on the property adjacent to their current facility. We've talked about this a couple times. This is half of that cost. The other half will be in the natural gas utility fund. We also have to fund new subdivision services out to those new subdivisions.
And part of that new energy services facility will help us out with IT. IT will have some space departments.
Recommendation is some ongoing projects. All of these get funded incrementally every year, and then as Rob areas, with the exception of the SCADA mate switch installations, that's separate. In the electric fund, some fee schedule changes here. Every year, NCMPA dictates what we need to charge for this renewable energy portfolio standards charge. This revenue just passes through us and goes to them, and it's for renewable energy research and development. The residential cost will increase from 81 cents to 85 cents per month. And commercial, a little bit more. Industrial, a couple dollars there, but this is mandated. And then the addition, well, it's not really an addition. We're replacing the renewable energy credit rate rider. What this will do is allow us to comply with interconnection standards, and the new rate is a net billing rate that'll allow the people that participate with our solar program to reduce their energy consumption by the amount that they of power that they generate, not to exceed, they can't make money off of it. It'll just offset what their charges are. Any questions on that? Natural gas fund, a lot of similar type things, equipment, pickup truck, trailer replacements. We're adding an energy services utility locator in this area due to increased workload, 4 gas technicians. We're adding a natural gas operations superintendent to supervise the field crews and ensure compliance with federal regulations. Natural gas safety and training coordinator. Currently, the crew leaders ensure that the safety and training is complete, and the workload is just such that they can't handle that responsibility anymore. So we need to add the position to take care of this need, and they'll also be training the crew leaders. We have a rate increase per our contract with Midland for their gate on the pipeline. LNG facility repairs. There's the other half of the facility, the new energy services facility. Subdivision fund, again, extending those lines out to the new subdivisions. And a lot of ongoing projects, system reinforcements, the industrial park, roadway relocations for NCDOT, revenue-based expansions. And then, these accumulate in the projects, and as the need arises, those funds to complete the projects. On paperless compliance tools is the only one that wasn't on. And that's it for natural gas. Solid waste has an increase per the collection contract, as we mentioned earlier. That's the hauler mandating that, and that is it for all of the departmental funds. So also included, as we discussed earlier in the process, we brought to council what we were recommending for inclusion, council discretionary funds, $3,000 per council member. We're also funding the youth council again at $42,000. The council travel budget, $5,000 per council member. The air show, again, net of revenue, outside agency funding is included. Our incentives, and we do subsidize the center theater. We're hoping that that number will continue to go down as their revenues and sales go up, but that's where we're at right now, and that's included. Just to summarize, rate increases that are proposed, the reps 4 cents per residential account, no increase in gas, solid waste, or stormwater, and a 3.5% increase in water and sewer. And where do we go from here? In May 10th meeting, we'll present the budget message, adopt the fee schedule, and we'll call for the public hearing, which will be held on June 14th, where we'll hold the public hearing and adopt the budget, hopefully, if everybody is amicable.
Lisa, what's our balance in the water and sewer fund now?
Oh, goodness. Russ might have a better feel for that than I do, right, offhand.
Projected to be just over 40 million at the end of fiscal '22, so
Okay.
40 million.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's a good number.
Yes. Yes.
It's a
and-
big number to replace too, so.
Yeah.
Not as good as it sounds.
Yeah, that's going to be an expensive project, but much needed and will keep us going
Growing.
for a long time to come.
Right.
Any other questions on any other facet of the budget?
A very good presentation. I appreciate the work of all the department heads, Lisa and the manager. Very, very, very good.
I echo what Freddie said.
Thank God for that fund balance.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of hard work and time went with department heads and staff and interim manager Ryan here. I encourage all of us to take these numbers back and crunch them a little bit more, maybe in the
Yeah.
time we have at home, perhaps.
Hours and hours and hours into this and navigating a new financial system.
Right.
But what we tried, the general fund was really scrutinized. So positions and equipment, true needs I tried to reflect in the budget. And I tried to balance that out throughout all departments. So I did my best. I'll welcome any other suggestions.
Any other business? There being none, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Hour and a half.